Hey, Alex here from Blacksheep IT Consulting. So it's October 2023, and that means it's been 3 years since October 2020, right? And in this video, we are going to look at an update from 20.11 all the way to 23.10. So that is the living behind a rock update. So if you haven't updated your Siebel for 3 years, let's see what happens and what you can expect and what type of effort you can expect. But before we actually go and do the update, let's rehearse really quickly. And I aim this to be like a 1-minute rehearsal. What has happened between November 2020 and October 2023 in these 3 years of Oracle innovation? For, there's a monthly update, so we are covering here 36 monthly updates. For example, Web Tools has changed a lot, so your developers might be up for some new features, including the workflow editor. The application folder structure, the whole application topology has changed in 21.2 with the new MDE, which we are going to use. You get a new Zookeeper, not 3.6, actually 3.8, including in this update. If you use Product Configurator, you're in for several changes as well, the whole order management. Web Tools again here in with the SIF import. The REST API improved a lot, actually it evolved, including attachment support, workflow support. Renaming repositories after full migration is not the same way as you do it, so make sure you understand all these administrative changes. 22.5 introduced data visualization components, which you can now use. Here's Zookeeper 3.8. Yes, you can now use the mouse wheel in list applets while pressing your shift key. That's for users. Another one, very important one, if you use task-based UI, 22.7 workspace enablement for task-based UI, including task editor, etc. in Web Tools, function-based indexes in the repository, ARIA enhancements in the web templates, so you get updates to 50 plus web templates you need to manage, maybe if you have modified any standard web templates. OCI AI services integration 1 year ago. If you use Siebel test automation, there's a lot of changes you need to cover. Again, order management. Migration again, objects are now activated automatically in the RR environment. Again, the REST API with the inbound data access control. So if you're using the REST API already, make sure it works the same way. Let's not forget the introduction of event publishing subscription with Kafka. Web Tools again with a few that we are going to see live, the SIF Attribute Differences. Test automation again with a lot of new features gained in July 2023. The workflow cleanup being now fully documented, so you might want to learn more about and use it during your update. And finally, Web Tools again now having in 23.10 a total of 9 wizards already. So developers, users, administrators, there's something new for everybody. So besides understanding all these new features, enhancements and changes to processes that you might already have, it's also important to understand the update process itself. So in the video we'll focus on the development environment and what's the process to update the development environment. So of course you take a backup first, you shut down the environment. That can be a staged shutdown or a rolling update of sorts, but you would have to shut down the machine you're updating anyway. You run the MDE installer for your current update that you want to go to on the first Siebel server. Why the first Siebel server? Because The Siebel server update includes the post-install database update, which is mandatory, so you must complete it. So if not, you have to make sure it completes. That will alter your development database. It will alter the schema, it will import seed data, and it will import manifest data. So that's why we take a backup. If anything goes wrong, we can go back and try again. Then you run the MDE on any other machine that you have, other Siebel servers, gateways, AIs, tools, developer web client, etc. You can then start up the enterprise if you want to. And now let's talk about the repository upgrade. So in this scenario, we deem it required since we have missed 3 years of features like the Kafka integration. If we want to use that, that requires a repository upgrade. And so we have to actually run it, and the video will show how it feels to run a 3 years worth of repository upgrade. There might be configuration instructions you have to follow from the release notes. We don't focus on that in this video, but if there are any to apply, you use the updated development environment to apply those. And then the question is, of course, to test and deliver all these changes. So that might be actually a lot of effort here, because the repository upgrade will introduce a lot of schema changes, inserts, updates, repository object definitions, seed data, and manifest. If you have 3 years worth of updates, that's quite a lot. So testing and delivering all these changes might take longer than you expect. Then we are ready to understand the administrative changes on the development environment, which might include checking the debug server, checking for the new 64-bit Java support for IMAP POP3, updating DISA, etc. So if any administrative changes are required, we of course have to execute them, and then we can declare success. The development environment is updated. Now let's look at a test or production or RR environment. This is a slightly different update process. You start with a backup, shut down the machine that you want to update, run the MDE on the first SCS, and make sure that post-install database update completes. So this will introduce the same schema changes, seed data and manifest changes on your RR database. Post-install database update must run once per database on development and RR. Once you have finished post-install database update, you run the MDE installer to update any other machines, including Siebel servers, gateways, AIs, and if you still have it, mobile web client. Then you can start up that enterprise. And now, if you had repository changes being introduced in the development environment, you have to migrate them over. So the migration means using the migration application to migrate the repository. So all these changes the repository upgrade makes, and the repository upgrade makes, again, 4 types of changes: seed data, manifest data, schema, and of course repository. So the migration application has to use the schema service, repository data service, workspace data service, and application data service. So you have even an INP file for the latter. So the migration process also might be something that your administrators need to understand properly to migrate all these changes over from the DR to the RR. Then, of course, there must be a round of testing, and if there are any administrative changes, they must be implemented, and then the test or production environment is properly up to date to the latest Siebel release. Okay, and off we go. We downloaded 23.10 and start the setup path as administrator. And so no surprises here. But remember, it's the MDE now. So if you really come from far as 20.11, the first time you see the MDE, so you pick the Siebel server, and now let's make this a little bit bigger. This is read-only, so it will update the components within that folder, of course. And here's the post-install database options. Make sure you fill this in correctly. If it's not pre-filled from the UCF file that might be located on your system. So all I have to do here is check the passwords and make sure that if you have multiple language packs or more than English, select or control select all these languages in the box. That's very important. The MDE has a restart services option since a few months, so I don't want the services to restart. And let's validate those settings. So just to confirm, this is the existing 20.11 installation. So here's the SES folder. Look at the old folder structure that we're still having. Siebel version properties says 20.11, all right. So that machine hasn't been touched for 3 years. There's the old gateway server. There is a bug which requires you to create these two folders, registry and conf. It's on Oracle support, and copy the zookeeper conf folder to the registry folder. So you see there's the old zoo1 CFG file right there, ready to be updated to zookeeper 3.8 and registry CFG and so forth. So now we're ready to install. Are we? Let's see. Okay, yeah, good idea maybe to clean up on any old file, like this temp directory is really big, or the log archive. It's not really absolutely necessary, but might be a good idea to remove files that you no longer need or archive them away. So just an option you have. So this SES folder that we see here, the old folder, it will be actually renamed in a few moments once you click install. Because we're coming from the pre-MDE era, that existing folder will just be renamed, forming a backup of sorts. So it's the entire folder as you left it, and a completely new installation of the SES folder will replace that old folder. And of course we're speeding the process up here a little bit. So now the post-install database setup has started because we opted to execute it right away. And you can see that SIEPDEF CLI, the headless Siebel tools, is hard at work here, batch importing SIF files. And yeah, that of course is interesting to watch if you're a nerd like me. It's also interesting what happens to the existing Windows services, like the Siebel Gateway has been updated, has actually started, which is not necessary at this time. That's because pre-MDE seems to ignore this start services thing. And the Apache Tomcat service has been replaced with a new service. A new version of Tomcat, of course, and the service has been replaced because the old topology is no more. So you can check all that. Here's the renamed folder. There's the new folder. And you can see the new folder structure now. So now a Siebel installation folder of a so-called enterprise component always has this folder structure. And here's the new zookeeper. So you see the registry CFG has been generated. It replaces zoo1 CFG. There's the version 2 folder, so all your enterprise configuration is of course migrated here. Yeah, check up as you need to on those files. We've already seen the gateway starting up. We stopped it, so it should be okay. And about these Tomcats again. So let's look at the Tomcats again. So the new Tomcat, you have to copy that path in the Windows service. So if you're using Windows, I'm setting it back to manual because that's my configuration. And run this path with ES for edit service and Tomcat 9W. So get this little pop-up window, and we see that the memory pool has been reset to defaults. So I increased this by tenfold, which is enough for my test environment, but it could be more in your case. So this is because the MDE the installer came from a pre-MDE version. So it recreates those services with the defaults. If you happen to be in a more modern Siebel version and do an update to 23.10, this is no longer necessary, by the way. So now let's check out the version. SES is now 23.10, all right. And the internal Tomcat is what matters on the SES. Let's check the release notes, which is a fast way to track down the version of the Tomcat. 9078 for Siebel 23.10. Okay, again, make sure you check all the boxes of your configuration. You don't have any surprises there. Now, time to start the MDE again for the other enterprise components, such as the AI. So quickly run through this one. There's an AI on this machine. Again, it will the existing folder, because pre-MDE will be renamed, replaced by a new folder, and then customizations will be copied over. Notice that the AI update does not run post-install database setup. This has already happened. So we are looking at the report here for the post-install database setup, and this is huge because we're spanning so many years. So make sure, and we can nicely see here there's a lot of schema changes happening. You can expect the same changes to happen on your runtime environment, test or production, because it's the post-install database update. You see a lot of new tables, modified tables. You see a lot of manifest changes, mostly for new standard stuff in web tools. That's the OpenUI manifest. And then, of course, you can check out the seed data changes made by post-install database update, including, for example, 127 list of values, or system preferences, or test automation keywords, you name it. So the report is really nice, but take your time to understand the information conveyed in this report. This is the mandatory changes that Oracle must apply for your new Siebel version to work properly. And you can also see the outcome of the if happened workflow and task upgrade. The workflow upgrade did not really happen this time because we were on 2011, but the task upgrade definitely was executed, and successfully so. So in the meantime, let's go back to our AI update, which is finished now. Again, for an AI, you can see that custom files have been copied. The web server is restarted. The web server, again, the Tomcat, is replaced on Windows with a new service, so you must take care of that service. So let's check out. Here's the renamed pre-MDE folder. You can later on remove these folders or keep them for backup for a while. And this is the new AI folder here with the new service. A refresh reveals that it has also been renamed. So yes, those Windows services are renamed when you come from pre-MDE. So if you have any scripts, you must also modify them. Here we do the settings again on the, you have to repeat that on every Tomcat. If you're not on Windows, of course, you have the sh file, setenv sh file, where you want to make these changes. And again, if you are post-MDE update to anything higher than 23.9, those changes are preserved now. And here we copy the new service name because I have two scripts on my machine to start up and stop the environment, and these old service names won't cut it anymore, so I have to replace them in the script. This is the thing that we discussed with the administrative changes. So you might have a longer or shorter checklist depending on your environment. So making sure those scripts work. Again, there's a stop script as well. I just take care of it. Here we go. Yeah, 3 years is a long time. A lot of things change in 3 years. So now my scripts are saved. I will need them later. Not starting the enterprise right now. And time to update Siebel tools, which is on this machine as well. Again, easy task. Run the update installer. No questions asked, really. And we are speeding this up here, so Siebel tools will be updated as well. And we are going to need Siebel tools in a moment because we want to run the repository upgrade as well. So if you decide not to run the repository upgrade, might be questionable decision because it's been 3 years, so you're missing out 3 years of features like the Kafka integration, just to name one. So here we launched the new Siebel tools. And of course it launches okay. And look at the workspaces here. So this is a very tiny test environment. There's one integration workspace. And to run the repository upgrade, to prepare for the run, you must create a integration workspace, preferably on the latest version of your main. I call it int_ru. So that's a regular integration workspace. You just need the name of it. You don't do anything here because repository upgrade will do stuff here. And now we're getting closer to running the repository upgrade. So let's go to the SIB server bin directory where we find repository upgrade exe. If you run it without arguments, you see which arguments are required. So we can create a command line like this. So let's take a moment to see what this repository upgrade command line includes. There is the path to the SIB server, the table owner user and its password, the ODBC DSN, the database type, the SAdmin user, table space information, SAdmin user password, SSE role, -W is the languages, so don't forget to include your non-ENU languages here, and -9, that's the name of the so-called parent workspace, which must be a custom integration workspace, the one we just created. So let's kick it off. And yeah, okay, it has analyzed the situation and found that it has to run a repo upgrade from 20.3 to 23.10. So quite a long way. It's currently gathering the schema information for each of these releases, and it's importing essentially a SIF file or a bunch of SIF files rather to import those first batch, which is the schema related changes. So at this point it's of course important to understand that the repository upgrade will change your schema, it will add seed data, it will insert of course a repository data and manifest data. So here we have done a high-speed version of this. This really takes longer, and since 23.7 you get this information that now you have to go to Web Tools to the SIF Attribute Differences view. Okay, we're going to do that, but let's look at the report first. So You see the 4 different changes it makes. You can check out all the information in the report. So do this and take your time. Understand what's included. And so you can check out the repository changes. So there's a whopping number of, for example, 399 business components being inserted or updated. You can't see that here exactly if it's insert or update, but I guess the action BC was updated. It existed before. And it's just one example of a standard BC that you might have modified as well in the past 3 years. So there might be conflicts, right? Schema changes could also be conflict laden if it's not an entirely new object. Manifest is most probably not a conflict thing. And seed data. So you get, for example, here system preferences supporting the OCI integration or the other integrations here. Clinical one, that was. Here's runtime events that you get, for example, to support the OCI integration as well. So make sure you understand that, and that could take a while. But there's more information. Here we are looking up a file called datamig.inp, which you find in that repository upgrade log directory. And this is the file that you must preserve for the migration that you will do later on. So we don't show this migration part, but this is the input file for the application data service in your migration application. So it can migrate those seed data changes successfully from the DR to the RR environment. So now let's fire up the new environment. So that's the first start of the 23.10 environment. So of course you might be inclined to watch along in Task Manager or check out the processes start up correctly. So of course we can speed that up again. So now we have the Siebel server starting up. And yeah, it's talking to Tomcat, so looks all good. So a few minutes later, your enterprise is hopefully up. And here we are in Web Tools already, confirming that it's 23.10 Web Tools application version, but the repository version is still 17.0 because there was never a repository upgrade on this environment. So it's basically repository from 17.0. And what about that int.ru workspace? If you explore it, you see that the repo upgrade has created a development workspace in another integration workspace. And that is full of objects, inserts and updates of all these objects that were listed in the report. You can, well, in Web Tools, it's not really comfortable to sort this information or query it. So you might want to use Siebel tools for the same purpose and export that information. But it's just the operation, object name, root object name, and root object type. So not really much detail. So now let's open that workspace, and now you can go to that new view, SIF Attribute Differences, which has been introduced in 23.7. And since it's a lot of information, it will take a while to load. Eventually it loads, and you see all the objects listed by type. So that's a hierarchical view. And of course, if you know, let's say, the name of an applet, standard applets, we only talk about standard objects, really. Standard applet that has been modified by you as well, you might want to check out here what changes are applied by Oracle through the SIF import. So essentially, a SIF merge import has happened on all of these objects with changes. So that, of course, to digest that information of 3 years, or it's actually more, right, from 20.3 to 3.5 years, really. That might take a long time because you have to, well, literally go down the hierarchy and look for attribute differences. So here, for example, we are going into the attribute differences for the service request attachment applet, which is a standard applet you might be using. And this one gets new user properties here. We can't tell it's new because the name is different. There was no name before, now there's a name. So that's a new user property. It supports the new transcribe button, which is there for the OCI AI integration. So if you will get that button. That's the information you have here. So the applet will have a new button, which is, by the way, not visible out of the box. You have to have set the system preference as well for this one. Let's look up workflow processes, because also there's a lot of potential for conflict, especially for standard workflows, or only for standard workflows that you have been modifying, including, for example, the SIS OM modify products and services, which is a very prominent order management workflow process, which if you use order management, you might have potentially modified, and now you want to understand the modifications. Long story short, as we look down the workflow steps here, you might notice when you modify a workflow and then somebody else modifies, those changes cannot be really merged, right? So you move a step to the left or to the right, where does it go? You have different branches. So if you identify any of these workflows listed here as being a standard object that you have actively modified, then you must take time and effort to understand the changes and manually merge these changes after you have finished the repository upgrade. So you will get the changes from Oracle, but then you can revert back to your customizations, etc. So it's a lengthy process, because complex objects like workflows or any scripted object, including web templates, which are basically code, cannot be automatically merged by any process. So a lot of potential here for lengthy knowledge gathering exercises. So navigating this hierarchical list with hundreds of objects, or it's huge, because we have spent so much time not running the repository upgrade. We're living under a rock. That might be very tedious, and you might want to have, well, a better way, or let's not say better, but a faster way of getting all that information. What happened to each and every object on an attribute level? So the information you see in this view is literally in a table, or sitting in, well, more than one table. And notice what I do here is you can check a flag, keep pre-existing value. In that case, for an inactive flag that was set to yes by Oracle, and I want it to be no, it's for a symbolic string. So no is the pre-existing value, yes is the imported, and with checking the flag, I keep the pre-existing value. So that's basically an instruction for the upcoming delivery of that workspace. If you check that flag, in any case, you have to click Apply Changes. So you can check the flag in multiple places. You have to click Apply Changes to confirm that. And now let's talk about another way of looking at this information. So here I'm in blacksheep DevPops. You find the link in the description. Looking at one SIF file that is actually not really related to DevPops. It's just placed there, which is called BCRM Imported Object Property List View. So it's all the business components, business objects, applets, etc. I've downloaded that. And it's a custom view built on those tables, which we have just seen in that new hierarchical view in WebTools. And I'm not encouraging you to use it. It's just you can do something similar. And so I will import that SIF file. And since you know how to import SIF files, etc., I'm going to speed that up a little bit. So that was the SIF import. Now we go to that new view, check it out, because we need the name of that new view imported from DevPops. Copy the name, we add it to any screen you like, literally. So I'm picking the data administration screen, which I know is in almost every Siebel application. And now the process of adding a screen view and registering the view is well known to you, I presume, so I'm going to speed up the video here again. Okay, so we have registered the view in the application with a responsibility. Now we are going to deliver these changes. Note this is not the delivery of the repository upgrade, this is just the demonstration view that I put into GitHub. So delivery process, which of course you are familiar with, so let's speed up again. Okay, so now the view is ready to use. Here we are in sitemap. Let's search for the menu name. And there's the view. So it lists all the attribute level changes. It's basically a flat view on the hierarchical data that the Oracle view in WebTools provides. The same data, of course, read-only. So you can use it to query right here. For example, you see whether an object has been updated or inserted. For example, we are only interested in updated objects. Okay, that's a list of all the updates on the attribute level. You see a flag for new child. So this view can make the process of identifying potential conflicts easier. And of course, can query and sort, and let's query again for objects with that name, which is possibly workflow process related. So you see insert operations here, new workflow steps in certain workflows, etc. So all the information is there to consume, and of course, because it's a regular Siebel list applet, you can also use the export feature. Keep in mind that when you do export on this view and you have this very long stretch of repository upgrade of 3 years plus, you might be in for hundreds of thousands of records, which might work in depending on your browser health, etc., or might work not. So here I'm just speeding this up a little bit. So you see it's really a lot of records, the full list. So you might want to export it in chunks, makes more sense. But eventually you get out a CSV file you can use in the likes of Excel, etc., to further increase your knowledge about what went down during that big SIF import. Okay, time now to checkpoint or version that development workspace of Oracle. So acknowledge the information here. So that's the checkpointing or versioning. So now you cannot go back and make any changes. Submit for delivery. And of course deliver. So that will be deliver into the parent, the integration workspace created by the process, which is currently empty. And of course that will take a long while because we have so many objects. So this is a high-speed version again. You can check the log files, for example. So here we see that started at 10 past 10. And if we scroll down to the end of the file, we see that it took like 1 hour to finish that process. So because that's literally hundreds of thousands of attribute differences must be delivered. So now we can open that integration workspace, we have to deliver it all the way up to a workspace which is suitable for you to test these changes before you deliver it into main. So one more delivery at least, so it goes into that int.ru workspace that we created, which is has been created from the latest main version. So that integration workspace would be a great place for testing. Okay, and yeah, so here we are. So the final delivery, in my case, I delivered up to main because, well, it's just a test system, but you might end up just delivering up to int.ru or wherever you find fit to run tests. And so that main 4 version now has all the objects delivered. You can see that it was 1,100 plus inserts, 731 updates. So that's the entire repository upgrade from 20.3 actually to 23.10 has been completed here up to main. And I'm logged in to the application here. Let's just verify by help technical support that indeed now I'm on application version 23.10 and I'm on repository version 23.10. And so going back one more time to our diagram of how to conduct the development or DR update from any version IP17 and higher. So we started at 20.11, but our repository version was 17. And all the way up to, well, a modern Siebel version, that is, at the time of recording, this was 23.10, but could really be any future version, as long as Oracle does not change the underlying process, which is outlined here again. So we have finished the post-install database update, mandatory. So, and we also ran through the biggest repository upgrade you can do at the time of this recording, the complete set from 20.3 to 23.10. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and bye-bye.